When I was looking at this data with our team the other night, it was reminiscent of 34 years ago in 1986 when we were struggling for drugs for HIV, and we had nothing. And there was a lot of anecdotal reports about things that maybe they worked, maybe not. People were taking different kinds of drugs. And we did the first randomized placebo-controlled trial with AZT, which turned out to give an effect that was modest. Whenever you have clear-cut evidence that a drug works, you have an ethical obligation to immediately let the people who are in the placebo group know so that they can have access. And all of the other trials that are taking place now have a new standard of care. So we would have normally waited several days until the data gets further about the I and cross the T. But the data are not going to change. Some of the numbers may change a little, but the conclusion will not change.
What are some of the adverse effects of remdesivir? Some of these include nausea and vomiting. So these are oftentimes more common side effects of remdesivir use. And remdesivir also causes something we call transaminitis. Transaminitis is a term we use to indicate an elevation of liver enzymes. We use the term transaminitis because the liver enzymes are transaminases. So transaminitis means an increase in liver enzymes. This might indicate injury or damage to the liver caused by remdesivir.
What do you know, John? What would you guess for the number of people who were really sickened and killed who had no presenting illnesses, just a positive test for the proteins, for the antibodies that were supposed to be specific to HIV? How many people were we killing with this drug?
Well, here one has to guess. I mean, I followed the CDC's statistics very well year by year, but then they stopped reporting certain things. But I have a pretty good estimate that 1/3 gay men were killed by AZT poisoning. And I have a table I created, it's on my website somewhere.
Wow.
I would say, I don't even know now. They stopped reporting AIDS deaths by year, which made it impossible to track certain things.
Yeah, I noticed that also, that the statistics, especially around 1997, was a big year where the next year, all of a sudden, they removed all the good stuff out of the reports. All that really they concentrate now on is how many cases there are in each city and each state, which I guess is purely for funding purposes.
Well, I think it's deliberate. I don't think they want tracking to be done on their statistics.
Well, if you take a look at their own statistics now, you take a look at those 1983, 84, 85, 86, 87, really, we're talking a relative handful in a country of then 250 million, 260, 270 million people, maybe 10,000 people. It really wasn't until the late 80s when AZT came along that we really saw, even by their own figures, the number of deaths attributed to AIDS going up. That was at the point that this chemotherapy for life, this harsh drug, AZT, was being introduced.
The epidemic went from a few gay men to now, today, 78 million people having been infected, 39 million deaths, 35 million people living with HIV, and the epidemic still rages with over 2 million new infections each year. So this is a list of the drugs that have been developed for HIV, and it's extraordinary that I went from 1981 through the middle of the 1990s taking care of people without adequate therapy. And then as the years went by, from 1987 through the mid-90s, we developed these 30 drugs, and this I consider one of the most important transformative discoveries in biological sciences.